Troglodyte warning. Today I'm going to torture myself for your viewing pleasure. I'm going to debunk a video from Richard the Fourth titled Toxic Feminine Energy is Destroying Europe. So let's get straight into the video.
I'm very eager to speak on the masculine and feminine dynamic in the modern world, and that's because we've completely toppled the traditionalist dynamic where male and female energies are very clearly distinct. Adam and Eve, yin and
Okay, let's go back on that. Look at this here. This is something like you'd find on Pinterest or something. This isn't scientific, by the way. Find the balance, and then you have projective, active, giving, expansive, outward with a masculine energy. Then receptive, passive, contractive, intuitive, and inward. And then you have all these kind of arbitrary gender expectations that aren't inevitable. They're not intrinsic. They're not inherent. They have been formed over time. And none of this is inevitable. But I'm assuming this is where we're going. Like feminine energy is this like inherent value that we've become too feminine, and the balance is, which is just simply not true. We live in a patriarchal society. It's inherently imbalanced. It has been for at least 5,000 years, if not beyond that. So the myth of this kind of, oh, there's a balance, they complement each other. No, there's a lot of relationships where you have one dominant person, be it a male or a female, and they pretty much rule the roost. And the idea that like the majority of relationships are based on this kind of a balance between, I mean, what evidence is there of this? Really? I mean, will he provide any? I'm pretty sure he won't.
energies are very clearly distinct. Adam and Eve, yin and yang, Rama and Sita. You find it at the heart of all major traditions. And this is because
All major tradition? Really? Do we? Does he show any evidence for that? I think I'm going to ask this question a lot. Evidence?
these are fundamental energies in life as old as time itself, and they're often in a
Really? I mean, we've got anthropological evidence of egalitarianism through our hunter-gatherer, but actually, what evidence is there that somehow there's been, like, notions of masculinity and femininity? We came up with these terms. We invented these words. Like, they weren't just discovered in a ditch somewhere. Like all concepts and ideologies, we create them. But I don't think he would recognize that. He does, again, he is an essentialist. And does he really stick to that? And does he even acknowledge that? I'm sure he doesn't.
dance with each other, energetically speaking. However, a wise tradition can guide these forces to act as a cohesive whole that can create harmony for a culture and society. Yet in modern
When has that happened? When has society been in a harmony between genders or harmony at all? He's just saying stuff like, give me an example of society that was harmonious. There's always conflicts in society, ethnic, mostly ethnic, between groups, tribes. We evolved in tribes, groups of 150. Sometimes we were very civil and we were cooperative with other tribes. Sometimes we weren't. Like, where's the evidence for that harmony? Like, I'm sorry, he's making it up. He's just lying here. He's trying to create an argument with no evidence. And I'm sorry, an argument without evidence is not an argument.
life, we don't see things through an intuitive, natural, traditionalist lens. We see things through a modern lens.
What does that even mean? A natural intuitive. What does that lens? There is no natural intuitive. Like tribes throughout history have had so many different ways, different cultures, how they perceive the world, sun gods, moon gods. There's so many, like we are a distinct species that has evolved with the storytelling ability, and we've created so many different stories of how the planets were created, how the stars were created. There's no one natural way. That's the point. But he is implying there is. There's like this natural balance in the universe. No, there's never a balance in universe or nature. Nature's inherently chaotic. The universe is. It's meaningless. It's just chaos. There is no like kind of balance in the world. That's where he's kind of a bit Pollyanna-ish, a bit naive, a bit ill-informed on just how kind of the universe works. There is no harmony.
It's very intellectual, scientific, rooted in ideas of power. And this has led to the age of ideologies, one of them being feminism.
He's just saying words now. This is pure sophistry. He isn't as intelligent as he thinks he is. He thinks he's intelligent. He's using words like ideology. He's like, Jordan Peterson, say axiomatic values. I mean, does Jordan Peterson even know what that means? Probably not. But just say, oh, we're in ideologies. Yeah, we would have had ideologies. I mean, it's not a modern thing. It's religion. I mean, 2,000 years old. Christianity plus Judaism before that. Like, ideology isn't necessarily a modern thing. Again, it's just so wrong. You can't even... It's hard to debunk when it's so simplistic and not evidenced.
Where we've decided that the differences between men and women are simply culturally mandated in the interests of male power, male oppression over the female sex. Now, because
that's a very simplistic view of it. Like, feminism is very complicated. I mean, it's at least 100 years, going back to the suffragettes. It's a complicated discourse. It's a philosophy. It's a set of analyses, evaluations of the world, women, and to say that, oh, it's about it, that's part of it. But again, just to sum it up in one sentence, he's not really saying anything there. Like, we live in a patriarchal society, that is true. And men historically have been dominant and still are today. Like, who has all the power? Who wields most of corporate power, financial, political power? It's men. There's nothing inevitable about that. It's not like men are more competent. Really? Look at the world. Look at the order, the problems we face. Maybe men should move aside a little bit, but he wouldn't even like kind of comprehend that. It's like, maybe men are the problem, but no, it's toxic feminine energy.
The West is so massively materialistically and militaristically successful, we're capable of papering over the cracks of the game we're playing. However, as things...
Again, vague gestures. This is going to be a long video at this rate. Just vague gestures to masculinity, militaristic, like papering over the cracks of what? Like, again, he's implying that somehow, again, there's a natural balance between the genders. No, we come up with these things. Historically, there's been matriarchal societies. Really, a lot of patriarchal societies. It's not inevitable. It's not inevitable. But for him, it is. It's an essentialist thing. Men are like this, women are like that. And why can't we just embrace our nature? No. Learn your lessons from Karl Marx. Nature is not true. There's so many cultures in human history. And you could buy into this argument if every culture was the same. Like, if there was like a monoculture of all humans, they just did things the same. They prayed the same. There was just one religion. But that's not the case.
Is starting to fall apart in the West. Some of the innate contradictions are starting to show themselves. It's becoming clear that we're playing with these fundamental forces of life and creating quite a lot of corrosion around us. Now, this really...
It's just vague, like, oh, it's falling apart. No, society's constantly, like, the last 5,000 years has been at least a few hundred years. It's an age of revolution where we are pushing forward the Enlightenment, science, like scientific advances since the internet. We are pushing forward. The world is so complex, and we've got 8 billion people. We have so many problems, economic, cultural, all just incomprehensible, complex problems. But it's toxic femininity, that's the problem. What? Just totally... I don't even know what the word is. Just incoherent.
Its head recently when Donald Trump stated in his typically direct and bombastic manner that the recent plane crash between a military helicopter and a passenger plane was down to DEI, that's diversity, equity and inclusion, a very left-wing, feminine approach to cultural life. Now,
says about Donald Trump, he was literally handed a DEI in his own way for $400 million. Sorry, that's not helping. We don't live in a meritocracy. The best should have got the job. Donald Trump got a leg up. Oh, it's okay for Donald Trump. Oh, sorry. No. And also as well, this Donald Trump said that based on no evidence. Actually, more likely it was to do with the sheer amount of planes that were going in and out was just too many in Washington. There's that. Massively underfunded. Air traffic controllers notoriously overworked, underpaid. And when you have that sheer volume of planes going in and out, yeah, there was recently 2 crashes. Nothing to do with DEI, just complete fabrication. But again, he knows he's lying, but the audience just assume he's right.
As I've said before, the right wing of politics can broadly be seen as the masculine side and the left wing the feminine side. Of course, the left is more, quote, compassionate. However, that compassion can turn into toxic empathy and become almost authoritarian. We've experienced that in recent years. It's what I often term the archetypal great mother. Of course, the right has a...
Just not saying anything, just these buzzwords. It's just so like, I know Jordan Peterson and his fans just love this, but like, toxic empathy, like, doesn't go into detail of examples of it. Just want to give me one example of toxic empathy, like just like the mother. It's like, just say empty signifiers that don't really mean anything, and people will eat it up.
shadow side too that would be expressed by something like the tyrant king and tyrannical behaviour historically. That's what the left is always warning of to do with the right, although they often ignore the light side of the right wing. That would be the sort of masculine heroism, that which creates boundaries and order, which in time gives birth to freedom. Now, once we understand...
Can you give an example of that? Of tyranny and for like boundaries kind of given freedom? I would like to hear his example of that, like a situation where the king, the heroist, like controls, but with time there'll be you will be free. I know you're not now, but trust me, you'll be free soon.
This dynamic, we can see why the US Army just didn't want to say who the pilot was, because they know that there's a bigger issue going on here, a bigger political issue.
No, they know that people will jump on DEI. Right-wingers will jump on it and just blame that, as opposed to broader systemic issues with how airports are run, how they're funded, how the workers are overworked and underpaid. But Donald Trump is going to cut back on that, so it's only going to get worse. But he can't talk about this because, nope, DEI, everything DEI, just DEI, just say that. Just repeat that in a video, and you'll get a lot of views.
Than just the crash, which was, of course, tragic in and of itself. So yesterday the pilot was named, however, as a Rebecca Loback. So that's what Trump was presumably talking to with regards to DEI. He's making the point that she may have been fast-tracked, so they have more...
See what he says, may have been. No evidence that she has, may have been.
Gender equal numbers in the US Air Force, rather than promoting the person with the best skills. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I fundamentally...
You are, though, aren't you? By bringing it up, you are saying that. You are implying your audience that it's wrong, that she shouldn't have been, based on no evidence, just speculation. This is what they do. It's the cowardice of like raising up it. And it's like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. You kind of are, though. Weak. But again, he's playing himself as masculine. This is the weakest thing I've ever seen in my life. A man would never do this. A man would make the claim, this is what this is. This is my position. But he is not a man. He's weak.
Don't know. The point I'm making here is how we read how the media responds, because the left-wing media and even the mainstream centrist media will say, how horrible of you to talk about DEI at this time of a tragedy. Think about this poor woman. Think about her...
No. Is it based on evidence? Was this actually the case? Do you have evidence of this? And also, what does that even mean? Like DEI. Okay, so women can't fly planes because you don't want them to, like because of toxic feminine energy. They like their femininity will just kind of undermine the controls of the plane, and too much femininity. Let men do it. What is he even saying? Like,
family, this is just extremely cold and cruel. Of course, that's a very feminine way to think about it. Won't someone think of the children meme? And in a way, you can't blame women and left wing men for thinking this way. It's just thinking about the world through a feminine frame. Some of them are quite conniving. Those, I think, can be held to account. But most of them.
Something quite, God, he's so emotional. It's so ironic because this language is purely emotional. He's not setting out an argument like you would in an essay with evidence and counter evidence and build up your position. It's so emotive. It's so feminine. It's ironically such a feminine argument based on emotions. Because he's not actually provided evidence on the DEI. He's not provided any evidence that men and women are inherently different. Because Cordelia Fine, as an actual scientist, has done science on this. Women's and men's brains are exactly the same. When a baby is born, little boy's brain, little girl's brain, exactly the same. It's the environment and the expectations on that little boy or girl that changes their brain. So yeah, a girl might grow up to be more empathetic, but that's only because she has been expected to be empathetic. Same with boys. There's no evidence that there's inherent values of masculinity or femininity in the brain. But he won't talk about that because he has no evidence. He's not provided any evidence for his claim so far. Therefore, it's an emotional argument, which is so deeply ironic. And he's not even self-aware enough to know he's being emotional here.
They just have that emotional response. It's why they don't get Donald Trump when he says things like,
they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Now, we can see from Kamala's response here, a typical left-wing woman, that she thinks Donald Trump is dying on his feet here. She thinks he's
Well, he is. He lied.
made a massive mistake. She's laughing at him. He's coming across as racist, stupid. This is unproven. There aren't any migrants eating dogs. But
yeah, that is the truth. It was unproven. It was pure speculation. A lie that J.D. Vance knew he was spinning because he knew that you have to lie. Racism is a form of lying, essentially. He had to lie. He can't actually be honest. He had to spin a lie about thingy because that's how he won. Trump won on criminals coming over the border. That's all he had.
this is actually Trump at his best, because what he's talking to here
If this is Trump at his worst, just being a racist liar, wow. Is really his best? Let's see where this is going.
is a meta-truth. Whether migrants are eating dogs
It's a meta truth. It's not actually true. Whether migrants are eating dogs or cats, it's irrelevant. It's spiritually true. So it must be true because, oh my God. The irony of this, like, so emotional, like, not evidence. He's saying, like, oh, logic, rational, like, cold, hard logic wins the day. But not if you're right wing.
and cats or not, I don't know. But the point is, he's a
I don't know. I don't know. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. That's not the point. We're not interested in evidence, based arguments. It's just emotion.
appealing to a deep instinct within men. They want to protect the most vulnerable, the pets.
The man who caged, like, literally Muslim children. Yeah, he wants to protect. It's so insane. It's just silly, isn't it? It's just silly. Like, people watch this and go, yeah. It's really, really engaging intellectual discourse. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, men. Donald Trump is just protecting people.
Children, the women in the community, and everybody in the Western world feels under threat at the moment because we know we're not safe. And of course,
Based on what? What evidence? Crime is at an all-time low. What, again, emotion? He's so emotional. Insane. Just insane.
Kamala has no sympathy for this. She doesn't understand the idea of boundaries, of order, of having to do hard things in life to maintain peace in your society.
What? Oh my! I don't know if this is real. Maybe he's trolling. Maybe he's deeply left wing. I know he has done meditation. In the last video, he used to go to maybe it's just like, I should do this, shouldn't I? I should just start talking about this nonsense and, like, because it isn't real. Like, what's he saying is just so silly. Silly sausage.
Thinks like a woman in terms of compassion, that these migrants are just innocent little bunnies and any violence in them will be washed out with a few pride marches.
See, inherent, yeah, essentialist, like, oh, they're criminals inherently. They're coming over here. Even though the data is clear in America, people who come over are less likely to commit crime than the native citizens because for many reasons. First of all, they don't want to get kicked out, and it's quite a draconian system. The prison, industrial complex in America is pretty big. They don't want to ruffle any feathers. They don't want to risk deportation. So they're actually less likely to commit crime. But facts and evidence are irrelevant. That's not the point here. It's not the point here, no? We're not interested in facts and evidence anymore.
And in many ways, this is why Trump and Trumpianism are very popular. It's because we're in this era.
Yeah, true. At least he recognised that it's not about evidence. It's a post-truth world where now you can just say anything. It doesn't have to be based in facts. You can just have speculations and feelings. And Trump said this famously. You repeat a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. Who else said that? Goebbels. Just repeat it, just repeat. Illegal aliens coming over, criminals, lunatic asylums, illegal aliens, just repeat it and people will believe it. It's anti-intellectual and emotional.
Of excess feminine energy, wokeism, too much compassion, toxic
Hey, should do a bingo card. Wokeism, DEI, leftist, feminists. Oh my God, it's just so... They're not bringing their best, are they?
compassion. And people are almost craving on an instinctual level that direct male voice, even if it is quite crude, even if in normal times they'd find it a bit excessive. At the moment, people are yearning for it because essentially they've been deprived of it. Now, again, once
Simply not true. It's just simply not true. American culture, specifically over the last 40 years, has been built up for it. That's why a Donald Trump would never exist in the UK, because we're a lot more moderate. We're not as brash and arrogant, and we are a bit more kind of like, what's the word, like restrained. It's a very, maybe not specifically American, but it's a unique American, the idea that you can just be brash. It's kind of, he embodies the dark underbelly of the American dream and just how kind of individualistic the country is. Deeply individualistic. No sense of community. It really is just like, you are out for yourself in America. That's why that's why private healthcare is such a thing. Like, they don't want help. They just think like, if you can't pay for it, kind of, sorry, but you gotta go. You're dead.
Once you understand this masculine, feminine political dynamic, you see it everywhere in the culture. I saw it again in an interview between Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson. Tucker is...
Two beta males. So these are embodiment of femininity. Like Tucker Carlson is. Like, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they are both feminine. They are both very feminine. They're not masculine men, are they? Like, Piers Morgan is not a masculine archetypal man. He is, and again, I'm not either. I don't care. But where's he going with this?
There's a more masculine, conservative male line, and Piers is playing the more liberal, feminine line.
That's so ironic because they're both the same. I'm sorry, they're both equally would not last in a fight. They're not masculine. Like, again, they whine constantly. Like, Piers Morgan constantly whining about woke and stuff. Tucker Carlson, very emotional. They're not like evidence-based arguments. Like, let's have an evidence-based argument. It's always like, oh, the wokes are doing this and it's vegan sausage rolls, and Tucker Carlson is like, oh, he doesn't like brown people.
You never really know what Piers Morgan believes. He changes with every job he has. But in principle, you can see the
That I agree with. The one time I will probably agree with this guy in the video.
dynamic at play here.
The thing about guns, I'll just say this for the audience who will all be looking at me thinking I'm the 2A gun grabber. The reality is it's a complete cultural difference. In my country, everybody used to have a gun. Everybody used to in the old days. Now, very few people have guns. There are incredibly tight restrictions. And the consequence of that is we have almost zero gun crime.
Was your country, is London safe now?
No, I'm about to come to that.
Well, it's safer than a lot of American cities, New York, LA. I'm sorry, it's objectively safer for many reasons. So, yeah, you can laugh, Tucker, but We don't. I mean, 60% of deaths in the UK through guns are suicide. It is a lot of school shootings every day. Yeah.
The problem we have is with knives, right? So I'm not saying for a moment you get rid of all the guns, nobody gets killed. Of course they do. We have a knife crime problem epidemic in our country.
No, you have a people problem. You have the kind of people who stab each other, and you didn't used to have that.
Well, we did.
Ooh, very essentialist. Again, very essentialist. Not the fact that there's been knife crime in poor towns in Glasgow. Racialize it and say, these people are criminals. It's inherent. They are built that way. It's inherent to them. They are just bad people. Don't look at the poverty, the correlations and causations between poverty and crime. Ignore that. They're just bad people.
We did.
No, you didn't.
We did.
I mean, it's measurable. How many people got stabbed in London in 1970 or shot compared to now?
Sure, but there are...
Actually, violent crime on average has been going down. I'd pretty much bet on it that you were probably more likely to get stabbed in the 70s in London, maybe even a terrorist attack, get killed by the IRA, than now, statistically. Probably if you're a young black boy, probably definitely more likely. But the average person in London in the 1970s was less safe then than they are now. Just factually.
Massive increase because the people, the attitudes of the people, the actions of the people are totally different. You've got different people and different behaviors. And like you
say, dog whistling, different people. What does he mean by that? London, different people, different behaviors. This is how they are. And there's no accident he's putting it in here because he's signaling that to his audience like, women are less, basically. Their energy is just too much. We need to like take back control. That's essentially what he's saying. He's saying, you know, let's pretend there's balance between men and women and it's gone too far now. No, there hasn't been balance. We live in a patriarchal society. But he can't acknowledge how much power men have disproportionately to women.
You can't admit that because I'm not sure why.
It's because Britain, like much of Europe, is trapped in a dark feminine mother energy, meaning anybody who states what the actual problem is will be called a racist, thereby losing their job and becoming a social pariah.
So it's not just women, it's brown people. See, he's conflating those like, oh, see, it's a toxic feminine energy, but bloody treating these bloody brown people like people. It's just too feminine. It's too toxic. Insane. Like, this is actually hilarious in a way. It's sad, but hilarious.
This is why Hollywood tough guy Idris Elba has been commissioned by the BBC to make documentaries about knife crime, stating how the solution is to stop putting a point on the end of kitchen knives. Yes, that's actually what he said. Idris Elba is, despite his tough black...
I like that, just to selectively cherry pick one thing he said. Don't listen to his whole argument about how young black men need more socioeconomic help, how we need to not kind of just like demonize people who do this as just criminals who, you know, aren't kind of real, you know, not susceptible to rehabilitation and help. No, just ignore that. Just, you know, just like this.
Black guy image thinking like a compassionate woman. This isn't going to solve anything. It's only going to limit the freedoms in absurd ways of the average British person. Taking the point...
It's so silly. He plays that footage of him from The Wire being all masculine. It's a character. Do you think the creator of The Wire was saying, oh, this is good? No, it's impotent violence. It's a critique of that. Like, has he seen The Wire? It's like, oh, it's a celebration of masculine energy. It's really not. It's a critique of the politicization and politics between the police and depraved areas. So, what is he saying? Again, just no argument.
Points off knives isn't going to change the behaviour of gangs at all. They'll just get knives and guns on the black market or beat each other to death with baseball bats. The only difference it makes is us numpties will be left trying to chop an onion with a butter knife. Yeah, this...
Alright, okay, he's kind of missing the point. We need to tackle the socioeconomic issues that cause knife crime and gangs, like in Birmingham, like in Glasgow, like in white working class towns in the north. It's the same problem. It comes from socioeconomic statuses. poverty. London is one of the most divided cities in the world. Some of the most wealth you'll ever see in your life, and some of the poorest areas, like Elephant and Castle, Camberwell, it's like South London, and then you have East End London. Just massive disparities in wealth. That's the issue. He would never talk about that. He won't talk about it because he has to essentialize it. Because that's the whole point of the video. Women are this way, men are that way, black people are this way, white people are this way. And if we just had a balance of like brown people not being here and women knowing their place, we'd have harmony.
This is what excess feminine energy in politics causes. It's all tolerance and sweetness and light on the surface, but it creates chaos and anarchy down the line. That's why
What? What can it? No, it doesn't. Just so it's such an ironically emotional argument. No, these are socio-economic issues, sociological issues. 14 years of austerity, massive disparity between income, the lowest socioeconomic status, and then people at the top in the UK. Our economy outside of London is comparable to Mississippi, the poorest country, poorest state in America. This is not accidental. But again, will he talk about it? No, he won't, because to him, it's just who they are. They're just bad people.
This meme went viral. You can see the defence ministers of Norway, the Netherlands, Germany and Sweden, and the defence...
So he's using the meme to, again, no evidence, no studies, just he's using a meme, unironically, as evidence here.
Minister of Russia. Who are you going to trust to win a war? Talking of Sweden, it's a...
The best? Again, not inherently, like strategy? Who's good at strategy? Like, that's not necessarily a man who's better. A woman may think about it in a completely different way. Or if they're informed more and have more experience and have read the theory of warfare, they could win. Like it's an inherent thing. Like, men are just better at war. Yeah, we're really good at war. Really? Women weren't fighting battles? He's a traditionalist? Women weren't fighting battles over the last thousands of years? Boudica? I mean, come on, mate.
Country that's been absolutely ruined by toxic compassion. We all knew Sweden as a calm, quiet...
Toxic compassion. Well, how would he want people to treat him then? Just like horrible. No, but you treat me like a masculine. Like, too much. Don't, wife, you're being too nice to me. I want you're being too nice to me on Valentine's Day. I want more masculine power. Yeah, baby.
Peaceful place full of pretty and likeable people. Well, after decades of mass immigration...
So silly. I mean, just stuff like that, it just shows you how superficial his mind is. Just, he has no argument, so you just show... I mean, the audience is getting pretty bored at this point, so just show some images of some pretty girls. Oh, wake them up now, innit?
From the third world, where anybody who sounded the alarm was told they're stupid, evil and racist, it turns out that Sweden is now the rape capital of Europe, that most of the rapists are coming from foreign lands, that they have a bombing every day now, and they have a surge of gun and gang violence going on across the country.
Yeah, but again, the essentialist argument. Yes, poor people come from a poor country and do crime. Yes, we know there's a deep correlation between countries that aren't as developed, are more likely to have crime, backward views of women, and it's actually wealth, education, access to contraception for women that builds people up. So yes, you have someone come from Eritrea, a military dictatorship. Yeah, there's a chance sociologically, socioeconomically, they are more likely to commit crime. This isn't an inherent, but he's trying to make it inherent. See, he's linking these all together. This is inherent things. This is what they're like. And it's toxic feminine energy is the reason why. Not socioeconomics. Not the fact that they come from a poor country where more likely crime is a way to deal with the fact that the economy is non-existent. The fact that they've been raped by Europe in terms of their resources. The fact that there's probably corruption and many issues, climate, deep entrenched issues of colonialism. No, don't talk about this. They're just bad people.
Because in Sweden, believe me, there's very little hope. It was one.
I'm sorry, when you're using GB News as evidence, the only real evidence, you're in a dark place intellectually. You're not in a very strong place empirically. I'm sorry.
I've been there many times, but it couldn't be worse for the ordinary people.
Any evidence? Just anecdotal. Well, that's fine. My experience. No evidence.
And when the Prime Minister says we are out of control, you'll notice he doesn't say why.
No.
The state has lost control because of the generosity of Sweden.
Yeah, while it's painful and we have to mourn for our friends in Sweden, we're not far behind here in Britain. Even the
Emotional mourning. Why is he so emotional? Like, that's such a feminine, toxic value to have. Why are you mournful? Be strong. Can't you be brave in the face of adversity? Weak. Beta.
rad femmes at LBC are cottoning on.
Everybody's terrified to say, what the hell are you thinking? You know, in case he gets a knife out, in case he gets a knife out, in case he gets a knife out. But that's not, that is lawlessness. If on your journey to and from work, you are thinking, best keep quiet in case someone stabs me. Failed society, right there.
Yeah, many of us in Europe have been saying that for a while, but you've told us that we're racist and what we really need is more feminism, more tolerance and more mass immigration.
Well, yeah, we do. Not necessarily massive immigration, no one's advocating for that, but a reasonable immigration that isn't a tool to demonize and scapegoat all immigrants for all your social ills. Yeah, we need more tolerance. We are very divided. And figures like Donald Trump have made us more polarized. Social media more polarized. Inequality more polarized. It creates a society of distrust where people just care about their individual selves and society doesn't exist. I don't care. There is no society anymore, only individuals. That's what the last 40 years has given us. But he can't analyze that and actually look at evidence, science, sociology, and go, right, what's actually causing these problems and how do we solve them? No, toxic image. What is he talking about? And people eat this up like he's this kind of genius guy. Like, oh, he's telling the truth that people are just too afraid to say.
This may go some way in explaining why half of Gen Z want a dictatorship. I mean, they don't trust the system at all, but why would they? It doesn't.
Well, that's dicey. I don't think, again, 52% of a small sample of 3,000 isn't indicative of that. A complex set of demographics in Gen Z. There's all, there's different groups, but there's a tendency to reactionary because of people like him. People, demagogues, who sell you this, oh yeah, distrust in institutions, distrust in, the academy, experts, science. It's people like this that sow this distrust of like evidence. Because for him, he just has to just say emotional stuff. And it's equivalent to him to actually having an argument. That's why people are going towards the right, because they're going like, oh, we don't trust the experts, even though they're right on Brexit and generally right when, they say this isn't good for the economy and it isn't. We were right. No. We don't trust the experts anymore. People are sick and tired of experts.
Doesn't serve them in their interests. It doesn't listen to them. It doesn't care about them. We're effectively living in a dictatorship anyway. And our liberal overlords, the elite.
Oh. He's like a child. It's like how I would have made well, I wouldn't, but if I was brought up now, how I would have made a video essay when I was like 13. Like, this is the level of argumentation he's on. A 13-year-old. Like, we live in a dictatorship.
You just
anyway.
don't understand why young people feel this way. It's why David Mitchell's article in The Observer fell so cold. No, I like David Mitchell. He's a funny.
Okay, well, do you actually talk about it? What he actually said? No? Will you, John, actually quote what he says? Let's see if he does.
Guy and all that. Peep Show was very funny. It got the irreverence and nihilism and paranoia of the noughties down very well. But does anybody really think that young people are going to tune back into the system if they get a lecture from another Oxbridge-educated millionaire who's never really had to do a proper job, who's never had to rough it like everybody else, and he's just going to tell us about the benefits of a new Labour worldview? It's just more feminine nonsense.
Okay, well, actually engage with the argument. What did he say in the article? Can you maybe engage with that? Not just an ad hominem attack. Oh, because he's wealthy and educated and privileged, he's not entitled to an opinion on this? Okay. Well, you're making money off your Substack now, and probably an all right amount of money on YouTube. Do you deserve an opinion? Exactly.
Nonsense that ignores the harsh realities of life, and the system is picking up on the fact that the people of Europe are getting sick of it and are waking up, and that's why they're going to more
They're really not, are they? Like, this is such a small vocal minority of right-wing grifters, Nigel Farage's, your Donald Trumps, your AFDs, your Marine Le Pen. Most people don't buy into this because they actually are educated. They know that the world is complex, and it's not just, you can't just blame all your problems on women and brown people.
extreme measures. Tony Blair, the godfather of European liberalism, is back in the news because he's pushing very hard for AI government and digital ID. We've already seen AI be coded with huge woke liberal feminist biases. That essentially means that the information that you can source online is immediately slanted to a certain worldview. If that information structure has the power to control our working, cultural and daily lives, essentially there is no way to dissent, and if you do, you will obviously be marked down in some form of social credit.
To be fair, I will give him that. Like, I do not like AI. I think it's soulless. I think it's a dark place to go down. And then you bring it into government. That seems like a pretty bad thing. And maybe it's biased to the left or liberals. But yeah, I give him credit where credit's due.
To my mind, this will be the ultimate checkmate play of the liberal system. It will try and control, like the Dark Mother, everything we can hear, protect us, quote unquote.
Okay. Well, let's just realize who's going to own these AIs. It's not going to be liberals. It's going to be people like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. It is going to may have, with the data it's given on the internet and evidence and reality, it may have a left-wing bias in some ways because climate change is real. But how it will be utilized and how it is built probably will favor capital and power. So let's not act like we're going to have this communist dystopia because AI, is woke.
From any evil information from points of view that could be construed as politically incorrect. Of course, what this will lead to is a state of complete tyranny, and we're going to have to figure out in modernity the fundamental lesson that no matter how powerful our militaries, how powerful our technology, you will never overpower the fundamental realities of life, such as masculine and feminine energy. Of course,
That's just an assertion based on no evidence. You've not actually provided evidence that these are inherent, that they're not just socially mediated over time, and that they vary massively from culture to geography to time and place. He's not give any evidence for this. He's not actually reinforced his point at all. He's just gone on digressions about DEI and AI and, again, avoiding the point because he has no evidence. He has no point.
Our tradition which once moderated this dynamic, and it's our tradition we must reawaken to if we are to stand a chance.
What does he mean, tradition? There's so many different traditions. Welsh tradition, Irish tradition, Scottish, English. Like, different, what does he mean? Like, and it changed, like, the nuclear family, for example, is only 150, 200 years old. But he's acting like we've been doing this for, no, tradition was 150 groups where there wasn't a notion of parenthood. The children were just part of the community. You didn't really have a sense of the mum and dad because everyone was just making babies. Like, there's just no evidence. It's just an emotional, like, kind of stream of consciousness that is incoherent.
Chance at outlasting modernity. That begins with a spiritual rebirth within. These are very much the topics.
Spiritual. Ooh, sounds very feminine. Are you sure about that?
On my Substack, do check that out down below if you're interested.
Oh, God. That was quite fun, actually. Fun in a weird, tortury way. Maybe I'm a sadomasochist. Hit the like button, and I'll see you next time.